Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Sama, Seattle Sacred Music and Art. I'm Derek Mazzoni. Hope you're doing well. I have Dobet Gnahoré here today with my dear friend Jacob Edgar from Vermont. Dobe is based in Paris. She's going to be playing in Seattle at the end of July with Yemi Alede from Lagos, Nigeria, and Naomi Wachira, who is from Seattle and also from Nairobi. Dobe is amazing. She was born in 1982. She's from Côte d'Ivoire. She's the daughter of percussionist Dobet Gnahoré, and she plays in a group now, Afriki. Now, if you've been listening to my show on KXP, you know I've been playing her music quite a bit. The band Afriki consists mainly of French and Tunisian musicians who accompany her on the guitar, sansa, the balafon, the calabasse, and the bongos. She moved to France in 1999 due to the Civil War, and she's been releasing quite a bit of work as of late, which has been awesome. Couleur has been on my regular playlist on when I DJ and on the radio, and it's great to have both Jacob and Dobe here on Sama. We're going to, as always, we're going to see a performance, and then we're going to meet the artist, and Jacob, who runs the label, Cumbancha, that puts her out, also has offered to translate, so we appreciate his work. So here's some music from Dobet Gnahoré from Côte d'Ivoire on Sama.
Tu vas vous entendre les pas.
Jacob, Dobe, how are you?
Formidable.
How's life?
How's life, Dobe? Comment? La vie, c'est comme...
Sorry. La vie est magnifique.
Magnificent.
Is it? Okay. Why is it magnificent?
Because we have sun. Parce qu'on a du soleil aujourd'hui. Et puis, parce que nous sommes en vie.
Because we're alive.
Okay,
Yeah.
positive, positive. What's the most amazing musical experience you've ever had? And that could be you performing and the reaction to the crowd, or you being an audience member. But we're trying to get people's artist perspectives. Like, what is the thing? What's the most
Oui, c'est quoi? C'est l'expérience musicale plus impressionnante de ta vie, de ton vie.
Ah, eh bien, c'est tout le temps, c'est every time, c'est tout le temps, parce que chaque jour est un challenge.
Every day is a challenge, right? So every time she plays, it's a challenge. Mais dans la scène, tu as un moment spécifique ou qui était très spécial pour toi?
Oui, il y a eu deux moments comme ça, ou plusieurs, mais je me rappelle là maintenant de deux moments. Le premier moment, c'était avec Angélique Kidjo quand on a fait l'hommage à Myriam Makeba.
Ah,
Et
okay.
le
So
deuxième
she
moment,
did
c'était
a
avec India
concert
Hari.
with Kijo, an homage to Miriam Makeba. That was very special for her.
Mhm.
Et le
Et
deuxième?
la deuxième fois, c'était avec India Hari quand on a chanté devant Obama, avec toi à Washington.
Oh yeah, I was actually at one of her magical moments, and I have to agree, it was when she joined India Arie on stage at the Kennedy Center, and they performed for Michelle and Barack Obama on his first Martin Luther King Day in the office. That was pretty special.
Yeah.
That was pretty special. That begs an interesting question because I just spoke with a thievery corporation out of D.C., and they're in the Capitol, and they have a interesting relationship with the presidency because when you live in a capital, it's kind of like the job, you know. And they were talking about how nice it was when Obama was in office, and when the Trump administration came in, they never came out. They were just like underground, and it's interesting because one of the things that I wanted to speak to with you is that like this country is the United States is many different states, so it has a really interesting identity. For an artist like such as yourself to come here is a treat because most people don't even know where Côte d'Ivoire is. They have a sense of like this is Africa. It's one thing. And so you're presenting something that they don't usually get. You know, sometimes we're talking about Myriam Makeba. They saw an artist from South Africa, or they'll see Yemi Alade, an artist from Nigeria. These are countries that have a big presence internationally from Africa. Côte d'Ivoire does not. What can you tell us about Côte d'Ivoire? I know you haven't been there for a while, but from your heritage, what can people learn about your country?
Yeah, c'est vrai que on connaît pas beaucoup la Côte d'Ivoire. Et le fait de venir en Amérique et participer à des concerts, à des festivals, pour moi, c'est un avantage parce que j'emmène le nom de mon pays hors de mon pays, c'est-à-dire sur différentes frontières. Et c'est une manière pour moi de contribuer à quelque chose.
She said, yes, it's true. Not a lot of people are familiar with the Ivory Coast. That's why when she comes on tour, it's such an honor for her to be able to represent her country and to give, kind of a perspective on the place where she comes from. And I should say, Derek, that Dobe has been spending a lot of time in Côte d'Ivoire, actually. So she goes back and forth. Now that things are settled there, she goes there a lot, and she even has her own record label in Côte d'Ivoire, producing young talents there. So she's very active in Côte d'Ivoire to this day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to hear because sometimes artists just never go back. For a variety of reasons. You know, I grew up in Poland, and for a long time I didn't go back because, for obvious reasons, I didn't want to join the Polish military. But it does become interesting because you, as an artist, as a singer, you're representing that culture. And that's really important because a lot of people just have no idea. It's an abstraction. And one of the reasons that I champion artists and musicians such as yourself is that if you fall in love with that musician, you fall in love with something of that nature, and it creates I wish there's a better word for this, Jacob, maybe you can help, like a sense of humanity, like a connection. with each other. So it's not like, oh, that's them. It's like, no, that's us.
Yeah.
We're
Well, that's
together.
why we
Let's
do this
find a way
music right there.
to make that work.
It's the connection.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where it's just like, yeah, it's not the money. It's a
Yeah,
whole other thing. why we're
j'ai
doing it.
besoin de retourner parce que je pense que l'inspiration, à un moment donné, finit par s'éteindre. Donc, le fait de retourner chez moi, c'est pour me remplir, de prendre des bonnes énergies et puis comment on dit, m'inspirer encore davantage pour ma créativité.
So she goes back to the Côte d'Ivoire often to reestablish her connection and to search for inspiration because she needs that. She needs to go back to feel the connection to the country and the culture and to be re-inspired all the time. So that's a big reason why she does continue to go back and forth.
What is the connection that she feels she needs from now? That's the other thing I'm curious is the music, the artists that we put on, we work with on Sama. We like to explore that connection, whether it's roots or it could be your community wherever you are. But I'm looking for artists that can kind of explain, like, why music and why this music. What is the thing that you're feeling that you're getting, and then what is it about it that makes you feel like you have to put it out? If that makes sense.
Je pense que la musique, yes. Je pense que la musique que j'ai choisie, c'est vraiment une musique. J'ai choisi d'être artiste parce que à la base, j'expérimente et j'exprime ce qui est à l'intérieur de moi. Et après, quand je vais en Afrique, que ce soit la musique traditionnelle, que ce soit la vie familiale, que ce soit les amis, que ce soit le soleil, ou que ce soit le sourire des gens, peu importe la voix, m'inspire toujours et remplit mon intérieur pour que je puisse écrire, pour que tout ce que je vois puisse m'inspirer en fait davantage. Il y a tout qui m'inspire.
So the music that she does really comes from inside of her. It's an expression of herself. But when she goes to the Côte d'Ivoire, she meets the people, she feels the sun, she, gets the kind of the experience of life there, and that goes back into her and becomes part of her personal expression. Okay,
that's beautiful. You're living in Marseille now?
I live everywhere. Now,
okay.
Now I'm between Abidjan and France.
Okay, and your musicians, what is the makeup? You're working still with Tunisian musicians, or are there other artists that are working with you?
I think je pense que c'est les mêmes musiciens que j'ai, et chacun vit un peu l'autre à Paris, un peu différent, parti. Mais à chaque répétition, à chaque création, on organise un temps de travail ensemble.
So it's mostly the same musicians, mais il n'y a pas les mêmes musiciens tunisiens que tu as travaillé avant avec Anoneko, non? No, c'est un groupe différent.
Non, j'ai changé.
Yeah, so the she has now is different than the one that she's toured the U.S. before. But it's musicians that she's been working with for the last few years in France. Sont tous français ou sont de où les musiciens? Sont tous français ou...
Il y a... Oui, un Ivoirien. On est 2 Ivoiriens et 2 Français.
Oh, two Ivorians and 1 French member of the band. So it's a quartet.
Okay. The reason I'm looking forward to seeing it. The reason I'm asking is that you get to tour. So you get to travel all over the world and you get to experience music from different places. You're in festivals, and most people don't get a chance to do that. And most artists don't get a chance to do that. Often you'll be just like working with other Ivorians, or maybe you're living in, as an expat with just other musicians or people from your same background. You don't. You get to experience that. So as an artist, you kind of like, you just start pulling stuff in. I've seen this happen. And suddenly you see these artists, well, I love this sound or this particular thing. How does that work for you in the way you're presenting your work? Because I've been listening to you for a long time, and it's an interesting, I don't want to call it hybrid or fusion, but it's definitely not something that you would just find in Côte d'Ivoire. You're a creature, if I can say creature, I'm not sure if that translates well. You're a traveler, a nomad, and you're incorporating this into your music, whether it's a soft piece about family or it's a club banger. There's something that's feels like you're pulling in and then putting out at the same time
I need
from all over the
you.
world.
Yeah, well, what's the question, Derek?
How does that work for you? How do you hold on to your roots? I know it's more of a statement. How do you hold on to your roots and yet be surrounded and created by all of that, all those influences?
Comment maintenais-toi une connexion à les racines de ton culture et avoir les autres influences de autres cultures et autres influences musicales de l'Europe, je ne sais pas. Comment tu fais ça?
Je pense que la connexion des racines, c'est vrai qu'il faut la cultiver, mais elle est quand même en moi. J'ai grandi avec, je suis né avec. Donc la base presque ne va pas tarir, elle va pas s'éteindre, cette base, elle est là. Maintenant, ce que je dois faire attention.
The connection to her roots, she was born with it and raised with it. So it's something that's inside of her and never goes away.
Yeah. Maintenant, à quoi je dois faire attention, c'est l'influence extérieure quand ça vient en moi. Comment on dit, faire la part des choses pour ne pas que l'influence extérieure ne soit plus grande que l'influence traditionnelle qui est en moi. C'est après maintenant trouver le bon mélange pour ne pas que je sois perdu.
So she always tries, when she does bring in outside influences, she always considers, keeping, not letting them overwhelm her own cultural influences. She's always looking for that mix that keeps the cultural, her original cultural elements at the forefront.
Okay, so this can happen. Some artists lose it, and you don't quite know what you're listening to. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But you've been releasing beautiful work. Tell me about this new project. Jacob talked about this for a second. This is with what's the symphony you were telling me?
The Luxembourg Philharmonic.
How did that come about?
Comment a commencé ce projet, le Philharmonie de Luxembourg?
Ce projet a commencé, ils m'ont fait appel pour un concert, et puis un deuxième concert. Et après, j'ai eu un bon feeling avec l'orchestre lui-même, et surtout qu'on appelle Gast. Et avec mon ancien manager, on a émis l'idée de faire un album, comme Angélique Kidjo a fait avec Gast. Et du coup, il a accepté l'idée. Et puis, Jacob, mon label Cumbancha, est en train de réaliser cela.
So Gast, who is the conductor of the Luxembourg Philharmonic, is really interested in collaborating with African musicians. And he was actually the one who worked with Angélique Kidjo on her Grammy-winning album that blended the voice of Angélique Kidjo with orchestral arrangements of her songs. So Gast had invited Dobe to perform with the Luxembourg Philharmonic a couple of times, and then had always had the idea of recording their collaboration. And then luckily I came in with the big bling and helped make it happen.
Good man. The big bling, I like that. You're hilarious.
The production.
Really let me break it down for you. This is how it works. But let me ask you a quick question. Both Jacob and I have been at this game for a long time, and we had to explain to people why we're doing this, that there's this amazing music from this continent called Africa, and there are many countries in Africa. And now, I've never seen African music. Well, Afrobeats, Nigerian, Ghanaian, South African, Ampanyo, and other. But in general, there is a huge surge of interest in African music worldwide. Weirdly, disco at the same time. It's strange. It's like the world is like, everybody loves disco, everybody loves music from Africa. I feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie. But tell me about your feelings about this? I'm amazed. I'm happy beyond belief that you go to a club or you play and you put on something, and people know it and dance to it, and that there are clubs that are filling up and venues are filling up, and different artists from all over Africa are, if they can play, play. So there's much more attention. It feels like you have a lot of buoyancy to your career right now. Is that true?
Tu comprends?
I need you. No, it's
Okay.
too long.
Non, non. Donc,
Okay.
Derek a l'impression qu'il y a beaucoup d'intérêt, spécialement maintenant, dans la musique africaine. Dans chaque club, il joue de la musique africaine. Il y a beaucoup je sais pas, de mouvements maintenant. Et tu penses le même, et comment ça a aidé ton carrière?
Ah, ça peut aider ma carrière parce que beaucoup de gens seront beaucoup plus réceptifs à la musique africaine. C'est vrai que les Africains se sont adaptés à la musique européenne pour pouvoir passer un peu partout, parce que la pure musique traditionnelle n'est pas écoutée dans les boîtes de nuit. C'est la musique qui a été un peu la musique urbaine, qui fait que les gens sont plus attractifs par rapport à la musique africaine. Et pour moi, c'est que bénéfique parce qu'il aura plus d'oreilles qui sont attentifs à la musique africaine.
Yeah, so she says basically that, African musicians have done a lot to try to reach out to an international audience by bringing in contemporary flavors into their sound. So a lot more electronic, a lot more hip hop elements, and that has helped bridge, help build a bridge between African music and non-African audiences. That you don't hear the real traditional stuff being played in nightclubs. What you're hearing in nightclubs is that mixture, and Dobe has been experimenting a lot more with that mixture in her new music. So Couleur, for example, has a lot more of that kind of contemporary flavor, but stays true to that core traditional side that she has.
Yeah, which is really impactful, because sometimes too much of that hybridization falls into the lyrics. They're very ego-driven. It's the only way to describe it. It's like a lot of bragging about this is who I am, and we're trying to, I and others were trying to like find these other artists and elevate them and center their voices from different cultures, from different countries, for more of a not exactly more of a traditional sound, but more of like that sense of community, more of that sense of like a shared humanity, which is part of our motto. It's like, how do we all come together as artists and connect people one from one another? Not so much as like I'm on top, but as in like we're all rising, if that makes sense. It feels like your music and other contemporaries, such as Les Maisons d'Afrique, Fatoumata Diarra, Angelique Kidjo, and others who are a lot of women, it's about community. It's really not about like me. And so I applaud that. Thank you. Okay.
And I don't know if you knew this, Derek, but Derek, I don't know if you knew this, but for the past couple of months, Dobe has been touring with Les Amazones d'Afrique. So she's been a member of that project on stage, and has been performing with them. She played at Glastonbury and some other big festivals with Les Amazones.
Oh, cool. You were there too. What was that like? What was the reaction like?
Very nice.
Comment c'était
It was Glastonbury.
Yeah, just in general, playing. That's. I hope we can figure out a way to get that to the United States. Again, but what's that like, playing with your contemporaries and playing for such large audiences of people that might not know?
No, maybe people don't know, but people support et people like. Partout où on est parti, avec les Amazones d'Afrique ou avec mon spectacle, même quand les gens ne connaissaient pas, finissaient par aimer, parce qu'il y avait une joie de vivre, il y avait un message, et il y avait l'Afrique en avant. Et je pense que tout le monde est réceptif à ça, le fait que l'Afrique a envie d'être en avant, et surtout avec des femmes au devant.
So even whenever she tours, either with Les Amazons or with her own band, people are very receptive to the music, even if they didn't know anything about African music. There's something about, that sound that just, you don't know you like it until you hear it, and then you know you like it. And so, she feels like that really comes across when they perform, and they're always building new audiences because of that.
Mm-hmm. There's something about this sound that makes everybody fall in love with each other in the audience. When I'm seeing this music. Other bands don't, but there's something about that happens that suddenly you're like, come, we're together, which is really nice. Why? Why is that?
Pourquoi Derek a l'impression qu'il y a quelque chose avec la musique africaine qui fait tout le public aimer à chacun. Chaque personne dans le public aimait la personne à côté et aimait la personne à côté à cause de la musique. Pourquoi?
Je pense que la musique est quand même le reflet de quelque chose qui existe déjà dans le comportement de l'homme africain. Et
So she feels like music represents something in the way that African people carry themselves, the personality of African people.
Parce que quand c'est aussi un de mes objets, quand je retourne en Afrique, il y a quelque chose là-bas qu'il n'y a pas ici. Il y a quelque chose ici qu'il n'y a pas là-bas. Et
so when she goes back to Africa, there's something there that we don't have here, and there's something here that they don't have there.
Et ce que je retrouve là-bas, chez moi en Afrique, c'est la simplicité, c'est l'amour. Peu importe, même si je suis pas riche, même si j'ai pas de quoi manger, je suis heureuse et j'aime tout le monde.
So that feeling when she's in Africa is, it's, when she runs into people, or when she goes, over to people's houses for dinner, everybody's always happy to see you. There's a sense of, community and kind of connection there. People are really nice to each other.
Okay.
So that probably comes through in the music, that kind of like, hey.
That's it.
I love you. Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Let's celebrate a bit. We need more of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What's the future from your perspective? What's the future for Africa? It feels like we need more Africa.
Derek, you ask very complex questions. Like
what do you want me to say? Like
I have a lot.
I mean, it's like. I want to find out. This is interesting because, you're an artist that's been doing this for a bit. You travel, you're continuing to produce work, and so you have a perspective. And, we alluded to this before, that it's, I've never seen Africa being in the news, being musically, culturally, as powerful as it is right now. So it feels like it's a springboard. Something could be coming from this. And we just talked about this as like, hey, it's how people treat each other, how people care about each other. I'm not that much of a hippie. I'm not saying like, oh, everybody just loves each other. Obviously, no. There's a lot of history, a lot of colonial history, and Africa is very complicated. It's gigantic. What do you think the future is?
I need you, Jacob.
C'est quoi? Qu'est-ce que le futur d'Afrique? Qu'est-ce que tu penses?
Le futur de l'Afrique.
C'est quoi le futur?
Je pense que le futur de l'Afrique va être dominé par la vision féminine. Je pense.
Okay.
Oui,
she says the future of Africa will be dominated by the feminine outlook, the feminine approach.
The future is female.
I think
yes.
I want. Yeah, je pense parce que en ce moment, les jeunes femmes et les femmes commencent à prendre... Elles avaient déjà dans la tradition le fait de gérer la famille, gérer les peuples et tout ça quand il y avait les guerriers et les rois avant. Mais maintenant, avec la modernisation, il y a une vague de femmes entrepreneuses et intelligentes qui sont beaucoup en avant. Et ça m'impressionne beaucoup. J'aime beaucoup.
So, in traditional African society, the woman is at home with the family, cooking, raising the children, yada, yada. But now, with modernization, she's seeing a whole new generation of women who are much more independent. They're creative, they're thinkers, and that has her very excited about the future of Africa and African women. And
so you're hopeful.
Yeah, tu as l'espoir.
So you are hopeful.
I don't see you, Jacob.
Tu as l'espoir.
Oui, beaucoup, beaucoup, tout le temps. Tout le temps. Je
Yeah,
crois
she's
beaucoup
got
à ce que les...
hope, and she's very...
Je crois beaucoup à la vision féminine. Et je crois que il y a de la force et il y a de la douceur en même temps chez la femme. Et elle est capable de gouverner un pays africain.
So she feels that there's a strength and there's a sensitivity from the feminine perspective, and that they have the capability of really running things in Africa.
Okay. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
As
I
a
want
father
that.
of 2 daughters, I want 100% of that. I feel like, guys, it's time to sit back and just, you've done enough. It's time to move forward. Dobe, thank you so much. I'm going to see you on July 30th with Yemi Alede and Naomi Wachira at Seattle Summer Stage at Magnuson Park in a very large space, which will be lovely. Thank you for your time, Jacob. Thank you for translating. It's always good to see you. It's always I'm grateful for you sharing your wisdom, as always. We're going to be playing your music, and we're looking forward.
Test. You really put my French to the test on this one.
It's good. It's good. It's really good. Okay. Thank you. This is Sama, Seattle Sacred Music and Art. Please subscribe, like, and share our weekly program as we bring more of these amazing artists from all over the world to you. Thanks.
Même si c'est dur, comment, oh, relève-toi. C'est Dieu qui est fort, tu vas y arriver, relève-toi. On n'a rien sans effort, relève-toi. Même dans tes moments de galère, relève-toi. Demain ça ira, demain ça ira, demain ça va aller, lève-toi. Demain ça ira, demain ça ira, demain ça va aller, lève-toi. Ya ya c'est, et canadien non y est allé. Oche, tamananaï, kumbe. Si tu penses que les autres sont mieux que toi, lève-toi. Même si c'est dur, comment, oh, relève-toi. C'est Dieu qui est fort, faut pas baisser les bras. Quand tu n'as plus d'espoir, oh, relève-toi. Demain ça ira, demain ça ira, demain ça va aller, lève-toi. Demain ça ira, demain ça ira, demain ça va aller, lève-toi. Ya ya c'est, et canadien non y est allé. Oche, tamananaï, kumbe.
Ane osa, alugiregi. Ane osa, alugiregi. Ane osa le dagu, alugiregi. Due dale yo, afa dale ye. Due dale yo, afa dale ye. Ça veut dire tout simplement, il faut que tu te lèves. Demain t'appartient, mais à toi de bien faire. Oh yo, alago, ça oh.
Même si c'est dur, comment, oh, relève-toi.
Frère, ça, même si c'est Katanga, comment, relève-toi.
On n'a rien sans effort, relève-toi.
Celui qui baisse les bras n'aura jamais de joie.